Hello, class, and welcome to today's lecture. Today is Wednesday, October 7th, and today we'll be talking about the Muskogean language family. So let's get started. So the Muskogean language family, these are languages originally from the southeastern United States, so South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, as you can tell from the map. Most of the groups were removed during the Indian removals of the 1800s. And what's interesting about the Muskogean languages is they form what we talked about before, a dialect chain, where nearby languages are mutually intelligible, they can understand each other, and then further away languages are not mutually intelligible. You can't understand them. So Choctaw and Chickasaw are very similar. Seminole and Creek are very similar, but Seminole and Choctaw are very, very different. So it makes a chain across the different languages. There are several classification systems for the Muskogean languages, and different linguists, including Monroe, Haas, and Kimball, have kind of ordered the languages in different ways. So, what this means is if we're building this dialect chain, what is related to what is related to what, and how you would organize those. There's some debate about that. There are other proposed Muskogean languages, and there's also a trade language called Mobilian jargon that is based off of Muskogean words and grammar. So let's look at the language classification for the Muskogean language family. So here we have, we're using Monroe's classification, where you have the Western, Central, and Eastern branches of the Muskogean language family. The Western branch being Choctaw and Chickasaw. And if you notice, they put those at the same level, considering them I don't want to say the same language, but mutually intelligible, that you can understand them back and forth. For the Central, we have Alabama, Coasati, which is also called Coushatta, Appalachia, Hitchiti, and Miccosukee. And if you notice, Hitchiti and Miccosukee are also on that same level, like that. And then for the Eastern branch, you have Muskogee, as in Creek, and Seminole, which again are at that same level because of the mutual intelligibility. So, spoken examples, I would love for you guys to, on your own, click in the different languages and listen to them. Choctaw, Chickasaw, Muskogee, Coasati, and Miccosukee I have examples of right here. You can find these in the PDF version of the lecture. So let's talk a little bit of linguistics about the Muskogean languages. They have a relatively simple phoneme inventory. So we have p, t, ch, k, the K sound, f with the F. This is probably the most interesting sound, the barred L, the hl sound. You have S, s, sh, h, which is just h, m, n, l, regular L, no R if you notice, W, W, and Y, yeah. So not all of the Muskogean languages are going to have all of these sounds, but this is kind of the overall theme. And other languages might have additional sounds. For example, with the vowels, they all have the A, E, and O vowels. Plus they can be nasalized, plus they can be made long or short. Creek has an additional vowel, this A sound, so that not all of the other languages have. Okay, so here's a written example of Muskogean languages. Most of them use the Latin alphabet. There is spelling variation across the different languages and even within the same languages. In fact, I have a Chickasaw dictionary that has two different versions of spelling for each word based on an older system and what they call their revised system. The main difference being some of the vowels are represented differently. If a vowel is long, they put two of the vowel, like two A's next to each other instead of using a symbol or something else to represent it. And they also use the apostrophe symbol for the glottal stop. which I don't believe the other Muskogean languages, even though they have the glottal stop, they don't necessarily represent it in their spelling. Choctaw and Creek are also known for, so in Creek they use the V symbol for the sound. In Choctaw they use upsilon, the Greek letter upsilon, for that same sound. But people also use the V. It's kind of interchangeable. And I gave a written example of Creek because I think it's one of the most interesting ones written, because there's, for me as an outsider, there seems to be a lot of disconnect between the spelling system and the actual pronunciation. But again, it's one of those things that as soon as you learn it, then it's easy to do. Okay, so another piece of information that I wanted to add here, I provided a list of cognates. So cognates are words that are related to each other across different languages, and we can tell they're related to each other by the way they sound and the way they look. And so all of these words are written in the Americanist, the APA transcription style, not IPA. That's why you have the S's and the C's with the little hats on top of them. And so the first column has Proto-Muskogean, what they believe these sounded like in the ancient Muskogean language when all the different groups were still living together. Oops, let me go back. And then we have across Choctaw, Chickasaw, Alabama, Coasati, Hitchiti, and Creek. So kind of that dialect chain. And so if you look here, you can see similarities and differences. So look at the first word, fish. For the Choctaw, you have nani, and then for the Chickasaw, nani. And then it changes with Alabama, Coasati, Hitchiti, and Creek are all related to each other. But when you look at the word for man, most of the words for man are the same all the way across until you get to Creek. And so you can see these kind of similarities and differences that came over time. I think this is really interesting and kind of goes to show the relatedness of the different languages, and which ones are more closely related and more distantly related. Okay, so talking a little bit about Muskogean morphology. The verbs are very complex, but they're not polysynthetic. So pretty much all the languages we've talked about so far, the verbs were polysynthetic, where you can do the noun incorporation, make a noun a part of the verb, or you can make the entire sentence out of the verb. That's not the case for the Muskogean languages, but they're still complex. Verbs can be affixed, so that means prefixes, suffixes, or infixes, which are affixes inside the word to show varying states or degrees. And I'm going to show you an example of that here in a second. Nouns are not marked for gender, so like in Kiowa we had 4 noun classes. Here we're not marking the nouns for gender, but they do take case affixes. So at the bottom I have see additional info about Muskogean languages in Blackboard. And so I added to Blackboard this document right here by Jack Martin that talks about the Muskogean languages. And the reason I did that, and he has his own word list right here, and his own kind of IPA chart going right here. But what I wanted to show you were these grammar examples of different verbs. So you can have, so it talks here about the basic word order right there, and case marking appears at the end of nouns. So indicative case is just, straight speaking. If it was interrogative or if it was subjunctive, other things, other cases that you can have. But if you come down here, so those are all nouns, to the different verbs, we have the so here it says that verbs in the Muskogean language that refer to motion or position often also encode the number of participants in the action. So here's a single subject, to run, a plural subject, to run, a single subject, to go away, a plural subject to go away. So that's very interesting. And then when you come down here, maybe I went too far. Yep, I went too far. So when you come up here and look at the verbs again, so you have these different ways that you can change the word. So here they say, I am picking it up, I am holding it, I am holding it. And the only difference in these two words right here is the tone on the middle syllable. And on the first syllable, if you notice on the first syllable, you have a down tone. And then on the second syllable, on the E right there, you have an up tone. Here you have a falling rising, that little hat, and then no tone on the second syllable. And then here talking about those affixes for verbs, so different grades. So the dog is barking, length and grade. The dog is chasing the cat. And so you can add affixes to the verbs to change the meaning of them to something. So think about, it's raining. It's been raining all day. It's always raining. It just started raining. It's lightly raining. It's pouring, cats and dogs. So all of those things can be added onto the verb raining to show the degree or the grade of rain. It's actually really interesting. Okay, so to go back to our presentation, we're almost done. So to talk about the current state and future of the languages, so I chose some kind of local and not so local people to highlight here. So for Chickasaw, Dr. Josh Henson is the director of the Chickasaw language program, and he's been real instrumental in instituting master apprentice classes. What that is it pairs a elder speaker with a learner, and they do completely immersion lessons, usually based around a physical activity. So maybe cooking something or doing some kind of household chore or going out shopping, something like that. And they are completely immersive. The student would have maybe a worksheet or some other kind of like vocabulary to study beforehand, and some go-to phrases like I don't understand, can you say it again, things like that. And they just work through it in the language. It's really interesting. For Choctaw, I highlighted Brenner Billy. You might know Brenner from here at ECU. He teaches Choctaw at ECU, and he's working to preserve the Choctaw language through cultural activities such as stickball. And I think that that's something that gets left behind. People kind of separate culture from language, but you have to have the two together. And then I also highlighted the Kawasati Language Project. I think this is really interesting because they're working to teach and revitalize the Kawasati language through a large community program that focuses on student projects, so individual projects that students do to help revitalize the language. And that's something that I'm very passionate about. Okay, guys, so thank you very much for watching our lecture today, and don't forget to check out all the assignments in Blackboard and study for your quiz on Monday. You also have a reading assignment. I'll have another video that talks about the different assignments. Okay guys, thank you very much. Have a great day.